Hello, it's Keith here, and this is lesson 10 of the Hello World series of my Z80 programming tutorials. And today we've got a bit of a late introduction to the series. We're going to be looking at the ZX81. Now the ZX81 is a bit curious because it's basically the first computer I think I probably ever used. I don't really remember it, but my parents did buy one very early on, and as I say, I believe I did use it at some point. I have vague recollections of it. So it's a bit of a sort of blast for the past for me, and we're going to be looking at how to do a simple Hello World example today. The ZX81 example is a little bit odd because as part of our program we have to do a few other things. We have to define some introduction code, and we also have to define our memory area. And this really comes down to the fact that ZX81 had very little memory. I believe the base install only had a single kilobyte, so it's not surprising that with some limitations. Now let's go over to today's code and let's see what we'll be working with. Okay, so let's just fire up today's example. We're going to be looking at two examples as we often do in this series. So let's fire up the first one and let's see it in action. So first we're going to be looking at this basic Hello World example. You can see it loading up here, and this is just going to show a Hello World message to the screen. You can see we've written Hello World and then some numbers to the screen. Okay, so that's the example we're going to be looking at first, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be creating a basic tape file, and this is known as a P file on the ZX81, and this is basically the binary file that would be stored in an acoustic tape if we were actually writing to one, but we're going to store it as digital data, and this data will be basically compiled via VRAM, our assembler, into a binary file, and then our emulator can load this so-called P file. Now the P file itself needs to start on memory address 4009 in hexadecimal, and this needs to contain a specific header. Basically, the header of this file needs to contain the system variables of the operating system. We need to define things like the memory area for the video memory, the size of the program, and a few of the variables that the operating system will rely on. So you can see that the default ones here, some of these are pointers to other parts of the code, and we're not going to go over them all one by one because, to be honest, the vast majority of them you don't need to worry about at all, and we'll actually be using two of these variables for our own purposes later on. There is a word here which is known as coords, and these are intended for use by plotting. We will actually be using these as our cursor X and our cursor Y, which we will use when we're drawing characters to the screen. So that's what we need to have our set of system variables there at 4009. But then at the start of our program, we actually need to have a basic line of code. Now we've got a line here. Now this is effectively line 0 of our program. And we need to have a pointer, which is basically the length of the current line of code. And the actual line is being defined by this byte here, and it's actually a REM statement. Why do we want a REM statement at the start of our code? Well, our binary program is actually being loaded as part of a basic program. So we've got a basic program with a REM statement, and then that REM statement contains a bunch of random gibberish, which is actually our program code, and you can see it all just here. So that's all going to be contained in a REM statement. The REM statement ends here, so that's the end of our first line. And then our second line, which is actually line 10, starts here. And this line contains a command known as rand user 16514. Now rand is a random number, but this is actually a trick. The user command actually is effectively a call, and we're calling memory address 16514. 16514 in hexadecimal is 4082. And this is the start of our program. So this is the second and only other line of our basic program, and this is effectively calling the start of our program. Now after this second line of our program, we then are defining some memory, which is our video memory. So you can see here there's a sequence of these hexadecimal 76 bytes, one at the start here, and then one at the end of each line. And these are new line commands, and we need to have these in place in our VRAM, otherwise our video memory won't appear properly as a screen. Now that's defining our video memory. It's all starting at zeros, but I guess we could put some snazzy graphic if we wanted to start with a nice title screen. But then at the end of our program, we're also defining 128 bytes of basic variables, which again is something the system is going to be expecting. You can see them being defined here. Here's the VRAM, and here's the basic variables. So that's what we have to really define to create a valid program that we're going to be able to realistically run on our ZX81. Now the next thing we're doing here is we're defining an X and a Y address, and these we're using, as I say, we're basically stealing this coordinate variable here for our own purposes. We're going to use that as an X and a Y position. Now we could, I guess, use the firmware to draw characters to the screen, but in my tutorials we really try and never use the firmware at all. So we're going to go straight to that video memory. We're going to poke bytes into the memory. But to do that, I think we first need to discuss the character map of the ZX81. So let's go over to our 30 and let's see it in all of its dubious glory. So here is the character map the ZX81 uses. Now it's rather limited, to say the least. You can see we've got basically we start at 0 here and we end up at hexadecimal 40 here with a Z. We've then got a bunch of unused characters here, I guess, and then we've got the same character map inverted here. Now these characters here are actually control codes that have other purposes. They actually represent, in some cases, commands that we can use from the keyboard. As in BASIC, they will be bytecode for commands and things like the new line. So they will have other purposes, but they aren't usable characters. You will notice we have a few character blocks here we can do for basic graphics later on. We've got the inverted set there. We'll need to use both to create a full combination of the possible positions of our character blocks in a 2x2 block. But the ones we're really going to want to look at here are the letters and the numbers here. Now the problem is that these don't represent a matching ASCII character set, so we're going to have to do some remapping. Our VASM, when we put some text in our code like we've got here, this hello world, this is ASCII. It's going to compile to ASCII, so we're going to need to convert that, and we've got a print char routine which is going to do a bunch of jiggery pokery to correct the characters from ASCII into whatever the ZX81 is considering its character map to be called. I have no idea. So you're going to see that here. So first what we're doing is we're comparing to a space. If we've got a space, we actually want to use character 0, so we're branching over here to here, setting the accumulator to 0, and we're jumping straight and using that character 0. If we're comparing then and seeing if we have a character above the number 9. If we do not, then we're having to make a correction and we're moving those into the correct position. You can see the numbers are just here. We're going to move those into the correct position for the ASCII equivalents, so we're just shifting that there. And then what we're doing is we're comparing to 96. Now what we're basically doing here is we're seeing if we're being asked to print a lowercase character. The ZX81 can't do lowercase characters. We've got no lowercase here. So again, we're going to make a correction here. And what we're doing here is we're effectively subtracting 32, and that is converting the lowercase to uppercase. We're then subtracting 27, and that is moving the A to Z range into the equivalent for the ZX81. The final thing we're doing here is we're checking if we're being asked to print something over character 64. If we're being asked to print something over character 64, well, we're probably being asked to print something in this range. We can't do that, it's not going to be right, so we're just replacing all of those with a dot character. It's just something to quickly solve any other potential problems, because if we put new line characters in, well, we could end up corrupting our video memory and printing complete garbage, which won't go so well. Okay. Now, what we're doing here is we've got this print char routine, and what this is doing is it's loading the XY position we want to draw to, and then it's using this get screen pos function to calculate the VRAM and destination. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. So basically our VRAM starts with a new line character, if you remember. So we're skipping over that, and then what we've got here is a 32 character wide visible screen, but there's a 33rd character at the end of each line, this new line character. So we're going to have to compensate for that. So our formula is effectively the VRAM plus 1, the first visible line of our VRAM that we can use, plus our X position in characters, plus our Y position times 33. Okay, well, how do we multiply by 33? Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to load our VRAM base. We're then going to add our X position here. We've loaded E with our X position. And then what we're going to do is we're going to load E with our Y position, and we're going to add it. So effectively adding Y pos times 1. We're then going to bit shift the Y position until we've effectively multiplied it by 32. And then we're going to add again. So we're adding Y pos times 32. Here we're adding Y pos times 1 here. Effectively we've added Y pos times 33. So this get screen pos function has successfully calculated the destination address for the character we want to show, and the accumulator, after all of our hard work here, now contains roughly an ASCII equivalent of the character we originally wanted to draw. Now at the end here, what we're doing is we're checking our X position, seeing if we're at the end of the screen, 32 characters along, and if we are, we're jumping to this new line routine. What this does is it zeros the X position it increments the Y position, and this is going to be suitable for moving us down a line. And that's how we were able to show our simple hello world message to the screen before. Just a bit slow there. So that's how we were able to show this. Now you'll notice here we're showing hello world $123. Now our print char routine was supposed to show hello world exclamation mark 123, and you can see it's a character 255 terminated string. The exclamation mark got converted to a dollar because the symbols here aren't the equivalents of their ASCII ones, so I haven't bothered to convert that because it would have taken more comparisons and more memory. I didn't think it was worth it. Now, printing a string is just basically repeatedly reading in bytes from our HL pair here and waiting until we get a 255, returning when we do, and when we don't, we just run them all through the print char routine. So that's how we are effectively able to do that. Now, how are we compiling our program? Well, if we just fire up our terminal window here, and if we just run our compile routine here, you can see we've got a large sequence of commands we're running to get this to the screen. So what we're effectively doing here is we are loading up VRAM. We're starting VRAM with this command line here. And then what we're doing later on is once we've compiled that, and then what we're doing is we're loading with ZX81, which is the emulator I'm using here, and we're specifying the machine to be ZX81, and we're specifying a tape file of tape.p. That's what we're using. Now let's have a look at the syntax of our command line here with VRAM. So we're using VRAM old style, that's the one I use here. We're specifying our source file ZX8 hello world.asm here. And then what we're doing here is we're specifying check labels. Now what this does is it will detect if we're making a stupid mistake. For example, if we've got our return command here, but we forget to put our tab in and put our return command at the far left, well, that is now going to be mistaken for a label. And what this check labels does is it checks if any of our labels suspiciously look like commands and we've probably made a mistake. So that's what that's doing. No case is disabling case sensitivity. I'm a Windows user, I'm terrible at my case sensitivity, so that's solving loads of problems for me. These commands VRAM equals 1 and build ZX8 equals 1 with the D switch at the start, these are defining some symbols. These are the equivalent of an EQU statement, like these ones here. This is defining them on the command line. Now you don't need these for these basic examples, but my more advanced examples use these in various places to allow for the multi-platform assemblable code. So that's what we're doing there. We're specifying the output file here. We're specifying the output going to the file tape.p. Now we are specifying that we're outputting a binary file with fbin here. So that's specifying, we're just writing a crude binary file. Tape.p has no header in it apart from what we've already defined here. We've effectively done all of the hard work by doing this header here. Now finally, this -l here is specifying a listing file. We're creating a file called listing.txt here. This isn't something you need, but if you can create one, it's useful. Now here is what the listing file will look like. Basically, this shows each line of the source file and the bytes that are outputted as part of the destination. I'm not saying it's something you're going to need when you're just getting started in assembly. It's probably going to be too complex for you. But if you can manage to create one, you might find it helpful later on. Sometimes I've found that bugs have occurred that I can't understand, and it turns out I'm doing something that's either too complex for the assembler, or I'm doing something that I am misunderstanding what is viable for the assembler, possibly a more accurate way of describing it, and so that will cause problems. And sometimes you can find those in the listing file. Also, listing files are really great if you want to see the bytes that the Z80 is actually processing. If you want to see the full details of it, sometimes that can help you out, especially if you're doing things like self-modifying code. Now, we've seen the basic example, the standard hello world example, but just very quickly we're going to discuss this more advanced example. I do this in all of my tutorials. This is basically an example that has a simple monitor function to show the contents of the registers and also for memory dumps. And if you're just getting started with your programming, being able to see the contents of your registers to the screen can help you with your debugging, and being able to dump parts of the memory will allow you to see what's going on, and again, if you're having trouble, help you out. So we've got this function called monitor here. This will show the contents of the registers, as you can see here, each one, B, C, D, and so on. And we've got this memdump function here. We specify in HL the memory address we want to dump, 4000, and the number of bytes we want to dump, 32 here, and we just do this memdump. Now, one slight glitch, because I haven't specified correctly the print char, how to deal with things like colons. The colon is incorrectly being shown as a 3. This isn't showing memory address 40,003, it's showing memory address 4000 with an incorrect 3 character at the end. So that's just a limitation of my print char routine not being able to convert the colon, which is what that 3 is supposed to be at the end there. So just something to warn you about there. As I say, this isn't something I was massively concerned about. And again, I could improve the print char routine, but it would take up more memory, and the ZX81 doesn't exactly have a lot of memory, so I thought we'd overlook that rather silly limitation there. Now, as I always say, you can go to my website and download all the example code and the build scripts you've seen today, and hopefully this will be useful to you if you're getting started with ZX81 programming. Now, if you've liked what you've seen, please like and subscribe. Hopefully you will do so, because I'm planning to do some more ZX81 content later on. We might do a few more little examples on this system, so if you subscribe, you'll hopefully see those as well. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this today. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.